Welcome back. If you will remember, not too long ago, I made a video with this list of weak points in my chess game, things that I think are within my grasp to work on. And I made a separate video that combined the first two of these, evaluating a position during a game to figure out who's ahead, who's behind, and then based on that, choosing the best moves. And I made a separate video about seeing forced checkmates and how many times I actually had them on the board and didn't know it, missed them, or did it wrong. But today I'm focusing on the next one, endgame tactics, and I'm going to show a few examples of what I mean. Times during the endgame when I had an advantage but ended up drawing because I made the wrong move, or times that I could have drawn if I'd made the right moves, but I ended up losing. So let's take a look at those positions. This is a position from a game that I finished recently. I had the black pieces. I'm down on material, but I have 3 passed pawns, and my opponent has the only piece on the board. The computer says this is a mistake, but I didn't know it at the time. I do know that they're probably planning on going here next, protected by the king to check me and get rid of one of my pawns. Knowing that I could not do anything about that, I ended up making what was the best move here, which was getting this pawn 1 square away from promotion. It's close. And my opponent did what I expected them to do. And here I had 3 choices, right here. That's the only things I can do. I can't capture this checking piece. I can't block, but I can move my king out of the way. And I have the choice of h4, which is kind of up behind my pawns, or h6 or g6. Now, I almost immediately discounted these h6 and g6 just because it looked like they could just check me again. And I thought, if I want to stay close to these pawns to protect them, if I come down here and my opponent checks again, I'm going to go back up and they're going to check again. And they're just going to keep cycling between those 2 squares while I keep cycling between these 2 squares. That's what I thought. Now it turns out, if I go down and they check me again, I can just go down again and end up here instead of coming back to the pawns. And they can't go over to challenge that pawn because my king would control all these squares. And they can't keep checking me at that point because they've gotten too far from their king. So basically the idea was I would go here, they would check me, I would come here, and now there's not much they can do. And if they don't get down here pronto to guard the promotion square, I can promote. Or if they do get down there, I can move the other pawn to protect that one, and then worry about getting my king up there later. And with really good play, I can win, or at least end up with a queen and rook endgame. But what I did was I thought the right move, but it turns out to be the drawing move. And now there's nothing I can do to win as long as neither one of us makes a huge blunder at this point. My opponent did make the best move, which the idea is to get behind here. I made the best move, which is to protect this pawn and get my king out of the possible check. They are guarding the promotion square. I decide to move forward, and they did the right thing here. So now this is a draw. If I move this forward, no matter what I do at this point, they're going to come here. That's what it says. No, if I move this one forward, they're going to bring the rook here, and then it's going to get complicated. But if I promote now, they'll capture, I'll capture, and then they'll take this pawn, and it's a draw. I haven't quite followed out the line of what happens if I play g3. It says they would play rook to h4, which is here, and it still says I should promote here, and they would capture, and I would capture, and they would take, and it's a draw. If I move king to g1, they're going to go ahead and take that pawn at that point. Is that what it says? Oh no, if I move king to g1 now, they're going to use the king to take this pawn. So you see what I'm saying. Either way, it's a draw. But and I could have won the game if I had gone the other direction, right here. Or at least had a very slight chance of winning it. I don't have a lot of practices of a queen versus rook endgame, but I would have better chances than my opponent at that point. And the idea is I should be able to win that. Anyway, let's move on to another one. Now, in this game, which I just finished this morning, this is from the 2022 Chess.com Daily Chess Championship. My opponent is rated more than 200 points higher than me, over 1,600. And right here, they have a huge advantage because they have one extra pawn. Now, I turned out to play what was the best move for me, which isn't saying a lot. I don't have a lot of choices. And right here, my opponent blunders and plays b4. You see the evaluation bar over there on the left jump, and you see that if I make the right move, I've got to draw an endgame. And the right move is c captures b4. I don't know why. I certainly didn't know why during the game. There's such a huge difference between a captures b4 and c captures b4. And now I'm followed the engine. So what I did was that, which loses completely. And the reason is, now that I know, because this a pawn now can just go past and there's nothing I can do about it. They're going to, I mean, I can go past too, but they're going to queen first. But if I had taken with the c pawn, now they have choices. If they take back, I take back. And we both have passed pawns, and theirs is slightly closer, but my king can get to it. And my king couldn't have gotten to that a pawn. That's the difference. But during the game, I couldn't follow this through in my head, and I took with the wrong one. But you see right here, if I take with the c pawn, we draw. I would have gotten a draw against a 1600. But I took with the a pawn, and it turns out they didn't make the best move. Their best move is to just go past, because I can't catch it. But they took back, which draws again. So my opponent, 200 and something points higher than me, also didn't know these tactics very well. Now here I did make the right move, and it turns out we're completely drawn as long as neither one of us blunders. So my opponent made the correct move, and I did not. My correct move was to go here. I don't know why that's the only good move, but what I saw was they wasted a move here instead of moving their pawn forward, so I decided, hey, I'll take off with my pawn. But that turns out to be completely losing. And the reason it completely loses is because they can catch it. And now, you see? Now they can promote, and I can't. And that's what happened in the game. But there were 2 points in here where my opponent blundered, gave me drawing opportunities, and in both of those, I messed up. And here is the third and final position that I will show you. This is also from the 2022 Chess.com Daily Chess Championship, and it's also against an opponent, the same opponent, rated at over 1,600, more than 200 points higher than me. Here, I have a slight advantage, very slight. If I make the right moves, and if my opponent, even if my opponent makes the right moves and I make the right moves, I have a very slight advantage and definitely drawing chances. But my opponent, it's their turn. They blundered, giving me a huge advantage. This is only an advantage, as you can see, if I make the exact correct move. Now, the reason it has to be that is because that blocks off this square from their king. Their king can't come forward here. And I can get my king this way to attack the pawn down there. And I definitely need to attack that pawn down there so I can get my pawn to promote. Now, what I did was not the best move. I did that. I really can't reconstruct my thought process at this point. I guess I was thinking of sacrificing my knight for that pawn and then bringing my king to root out their knight and promote my pawn. But yeah, here and eventually I made another mistake that ended up losing me the game. But right here, if I had brought my king forward, there's not much that my opponent can do. They can try to bring their king around this way, but it's too late. If they do play king f1, I go here. If they play king e1, I can come here. And I'm going to win that pawn. Not immediately because their knight is guarding it, but then I can bring my knight and hit that pawn. And I've got a pawn right here, 2 steps from promotion, and it's easy peasy just to get it right through there. But right back here, I made the wrong move and lost the game. So what can I do about this? I think the only thing that I know for sure that I can do about this is to continue playing puzzles that involve end games. And sure enough, some of the puzzles that I do are in these types of situations. And also I can continue evaluating these puzzles and trying to not these puzzles, but these games afterwards, running these analyses and figuring it out. And now again, I cannot explain my exact thought process for wanting to bring the knight here, which is what I did in the game. But now that I know what I should have done and I know why, hopefully that'll help. And as long as I keep working on these, I think eventually I can work on this. I think the reason that I discounted that move, obviously I know it's a possible move, but I saw 2 problems with it. One was that they can check me with this pawn, and 2 was that they could have checked me with this knight, which would have been fine, as it turns out, because if they check me with either one of those pieces, I can keep moving toward the pawn. That's my problem. This pawn down here being my problem. And I should have looked at it I had time. It's a daily game. I had time to think about that and say, well, what do I do if they check me? I can't capture this pawn because the knight's protecting it, but I can keep moving toward this pawn. And yes, if they check me and I move here, they can check me with the knight, but I can still go. I can still keep moving toward this pawn, which is my greatest obstacle at this point. So I think those are my 2 solutions for the time being. And the third solution, which I will get to, is getting a book on endgame tactics or endgames. I've learned a lot from the other chess books that I've read, but I haven't yet read one that's focused solely on endgames. So that is definitely something that I think is within my grasp to work on, to get better at. And as you've seen from a couple of these examples, even my higher ranked opponents, my 1600 opponent here was not really well versed on these same things. In fact, both of these games gave me the opportunities that I needed. But so if I were to study these and get better at them, it would automatically have given me the win in a couple of these games. So that's one of the next steps that I'm taking. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments.